respected elders, friends, and colleagues. Um, it's been really great coming to Goa. This is one of my favorite destinations, my sixth time probably I've come here. Unfortunately, it was raining yesterday. And as we all know, the early morning session is the casualty of a very good entertaining program the previous night. And I was willing to be the sacrificial goat because I had to leave early. So thank you. And I really want to thank the coordinators, Dr. Gupta and Dr. Samir, for allowing this particular consensus statement because it's not a new document. But since this is the first LipidCon conference, I thought appropriate that an Indian consensus statement may be told on this occasion. And some lot of work done by some of the people in this statement were part of the group yesterday also. And my work has become much easier because whatever I'm going to say has been discussed and analyzed and already told very clearly by speakers yesterday. We had a really fantastic scientific session yesterday. So, Lipid Association of India expert consensus statement on management of dyslipidemia in Indians. This is a view of the hospital, super specialty hospital, which I just started in Guwahati. This is the journal where it was first published, and the part 2 is under publication soon. So basically, we all know that there's a tsunami of heart disease in Indians, and the worrying fact is that, the number of Indians with CAD, 17% less than 30 years of age, and the number of deaths due to CAD again, 14% of deaths are age of below 30 years and 32% below 40 years. So at that age, where the, uh, the people are earning money, earning a livelihood for their family, that is the age where this deadly disease strikes. When you look at Western figures, US, there's been appreciable decline in coronary artery disease over a decade, and other European countries too, there has been impressive decrease in coronary artery disease mortality, while in India, the curves are moving the opposite side. So it's quite a worrying factor. So therefore, WHO estimates that by 2020, more than 50% of cardiac patients worldwide will be Indians, and over 40% of deaths in India itself will not be due to communicable diseases, but because of coronary artery disease. So really, India is set to be soon going to become the heart disease capital of the world. Now, when you look at dyslipidemia in Indians, yesterday also it was pointed out, it is the low HDL cholesterol, which is prevalence of 72% followed by hypertriglyceridemia. The high LDL is only 11.8, but then here comes a different story to this incidence of lower incidence prevalence of high LDL. The Indian LDL contains more of the atherogenic LDL particles because we have more small, dense LDL. Like if an Indian has a LDL of 100 compared to a Western, a Caucasian has a LDL of 100, there will be many, many more atherogenic particles in the Indian, the blood of the Indian as compared to the Caucasian. So this small dense LDL is something which is very atherogenic and forms part of the atherogenic triad. Now, the worrying thing is that this slide shows that in children, even in children, this dyslipidemia comes early, and age of 14 to 18 years in Delhi, almost 50% of these children had the same type of dyslipidemia of high triglyceride and low HDL. So why this expert recommendation was needed? Because compared to other ethnic groups, Southeast Asians have higher prevalence of atherogenic dyslipidemia. And these traditional risk factors strike at a younger age. There's lack of awareness on CAD prevention. There are various type of dietary factors which we Indians follow, which are not exactly healthy, and physical inactivity is becoming rampant. So it was back in 2004 that the ATP3, recognizing the benefit of PROVE 22 trial, they gave the high risk category to certain patients like acute coronary syndrome and said the goal should be less than 100 and optional goal of less than 70. Subsequently, we had a lot of confusing guidelines. The ACC/AHA removed all types of target for LDL, and the ADA followed suit. And of course, the Europeans still maintained a target goal of LDL. The NLA again recommended that everybody should be treated according to target goal and divided the risk category. Then the joint British Society and in NICE, they came up with a primary goal of not only LDL, but they said non-HDL cholesterol should also be considered as a goal, and it should be used in preference to LDL as treatment goal for lipid-lowering therapy because of various advantages we have discussed yesterday also, the primary factor being that it represents all the atherogenic particles in the blood, and it does not need a fasting blood sample, to measure it. So basically, there was some brainstorming meets by the Lipid Association of India across the country, and each meeting was conducted using a standardized format, and key issues related to dyslipidemia were presented in the form of lectures. They were followed by a discussion, and these discussions were based on existing data. And at the end of each discussion, a questionnaire was given to all the participating experts. And after they filled it, these questionnaires were also sent to experts all over the country. And, data of more than 200 DM cardiologists and endocrinologists, they were collected. And finally, these are the recommendations that they came up, which is part of the document, that for Indians, we should screen a lipid profile by 20 years of age or at the time of college admission or the earliest opportunity whenever we happen to come across such an individual. Rule out secondary causes of dyslipidemia before launching on to treatment. And fasting lipid profile is not mandatory as discussed. Non-HDL cholesterol should be calculated in every subject. Identify patient risk category based on conventional and non-conventional risk factors because as we know, there's quite a lot of prevalence of non-conventional risk factors in the South Asian population. So the major risk factors, nothing new about it. We know about the age, we know the family history of premature CAD, and even this definition of premature CAD less than 55 in male and less than 65, probably in Indian population it qualifies to become a decade earlier because it, as we know, CAD is striking Indians at the age of less than 40 and less than 30 quite frequently. And the other conventional major risk factors like both smoking and non-smoking tobacco, high blood pressure, and LDL cholesterol. And what are the non-conventional risk factors which you emphasized? That was CAC more than 300 angstrom units, carotid intima media thickness was also emphasized yesterday, presence of an atheromatous plaque, aortic pulse wave velocity, high sensitivity C-reactive protein, and lipoprotein A more than 50 milligram, which is again, lipoprotein is one atherogenic molecule quite made famous by probably NAS and known to be quite atherogenic. So I'll just spend a few minutes on this slide. So the basic recommended approach was that we would first count the number of major ASCVD risk factors as just mentioned and qualify the patient as low risk if there were only one major risk factor or no major risk factor in this patient. And then if this patient had more than one moderate risk non-conventional risk factors, which I just mentioned, calcium artery score and lipoprotein, metabolic syndrome, then automatically his low risk would increase to moderate risk. Otherwise, moderate risk individuals are those with two major atherosclerotic ASCVD risk factors. Then what are the high risk? The high risk patients are those with three or more of these major risk factors, or they have one or more other high risk factors. So the third category they defined of other high risk features are diabetes with other major ASCVD risk factors and no evidence of target organ damage, CKD stage 3B or 4, familial hypercholesteremia other than the homozygous variety, extreme of a single risk factor like LDL say more than 200, a CAC more than 300, a lipoprotein more than 50. So these were other high-risk features which qualified the patient to become a high-risk candidate. And finally, the very high risk if the patient had pre-existing ASCVD or he had diabetes with two or more major ASCVD risk factors or evidence of target organ damage or if the patient had familial homozygous hypercholesteremia. So this is basically the recommended approach to stratify Indians which Lai had proposed. And even then, if a patient is of low risk, in that case also, we should take a lifetime CVD risk for this individual because, even if he's at low risk at 5 to 10 years, his lifetime risk may be high. So this was basically how the risk profile was estimated. And in in a patient who's having a low risk, a lifetime risk assessment is more important rather than 10 years because, as I said, higher prevalence of CAD in young Indian population. And short-term risk does not become high until later in life. So thereby we lose the opportunity for timely prevention of CAD. So goal of primary prevention is to reduce lifetime risk, not just a 5 or 10-year-old risk. So there are different lifetime risk calculators, and the JB3 risk calculator is what was recommended because it also has the family history of premature CAD, which is very important. It does not have HSCRP because it was felt that in Indians, many Indians, because of various infections, being prone to infections, you have a spurious rise of HSCRP. So in this JBS3, the family history of coronary artery disease was present, as well as CKD and other minor issues like AF and rheumatoid arthritis. So it was felt that this was a good index of calculator. So finally, what were the treatment goals? The very high risk, in fact, this was the first document which proposed less than 50. And yesterday we just saw Dr. Ponde just saying that up to 35 there is no problem and it could be okay up to almost 15 LDL. So therefore, less than LDL, LDL of less than 50 is safe. Is the conclusion of most of the cardiologists today. And so this is the goal for very high risk. And the low risk, the goal is less than 100. The other important thing is that treatment, if a patient is in moderate risk, the treatment should start when the LDL is more than 100. So qualifying this, if we have to believe this document, most Indians actually, when they fall into moderate risk, will finally be requiring a statin quite early in life. So this was vindicated the next year in 2017 when the American Association of Clinical Endocrinologists, who are more aggressive than the American cardiologists, they said that they defined an extreme high risk category when LDL is less than 70 and the patient is still having an ASCVD or unstable angina, and they gave a goal of less than 55. Then the role of primordial prevention was emphasized, prevention of risk factors causative to the disease, thereby reducing likelihood of development of disease early in childhood. This is very important. And, you know, therapeutic lifestyle was very beautifully also mentioned by Dr. M.K. Das. And that is basically the foundation of any treatment, because whatever, if the foundation of a building is weak, whatever you build up is of no use. So therefore, every patient when we are treating, probably this is one aspect where physicians are lacking in the sense that we do not spend much time describing the TLC to our patients unless they ask for it. So this should be an integral part of the physician's prescription also, telling them about an appropriate diet, caloric reduction, smoking cessation, and abstinence from alcohol. Again, a debatable thing, because most of the data of Southeast Asians were from Salim Yusuf Interheart study, where they showed that alcohol intake is not protective in South Asian population. And the second is Dr. Ambuj Roy, my close friend in All India Institute. He was supposed to come today. His paper, and I was criticizing Ambuj in the sense that saying that the cohort, the number of the people who took for this study were mostly industrial workers who have a different way of drinking. And ironically, after Ambuj published the paper, he was a teetotaler up to then. And after the paper got published, he started, you know, on his journey in this having a glass of wine or a single malt. So I was just telling Ambuj that probably you were not convinced yourself about that paper, but it's off-quoted paper, and that is a mention of that in every publication when you have to actually say that alcohol is not at all beneficial in South Asian population. So I leave it to the house to take a decision on that. No doubts about physical activity. You know that moderate, intense physical activity, as well as nowadays yoga and stress management, is very important. Now the primary target for treatment is LDL. LDL less than 50 is safe, and statins are the primary modality of reducing LDL. So these are very clear. And lipid profile should be checked at time of diagnosis and then every 3 to 6 months of treatment. The maximally tolerated statin dose should be given. We should not give a low dose initially. And add-on therapy can be considered when goals are not reached, like fibrates or dual PPAR or bile acid sequestrants. And these drugs may also be used in patients with statin intolerance, but lifestyle modification remains the foundation of a treatment. The non-HDL cholesterol, as I said, is important because it includes all the atherogenic particles in the blood, and the LAI considered is as a co-primary target for treatment. So with LDL, we should always have a non-HDL measurement also. Statins are effective agents for decreasing non-HDL as well, and the goal for non-HDL is 30 more than that of LDL cholesterol. Elevated triglyceride, very beautifully described yesterday, that it is a risk factor, it should be treated, especially if statin goals are achieved and triglyceride levels are high beyond 200 and HDL is below 40, it is still going to impart a risk factor for the patient, as has been seen in the subgroup analysis of the field study. So therefore, another important thing is that we should try to get the triglyceride below 100, because triglyceride is one molecule, if it increases, the number of small dense LDL particles also increases in our blood. And if we get a triglyceride less than 800, 85% of our LDL molecules are not the small dense variety, but they are the larger ones. And if the triglyceride is more than 200, 85% of the LDL in our blood is actually the small dense LDL. So in Indians, probably less than 100 would be more appropriate than less than 150. So lifestyle is very important to reduce triglyceride, and statins are again the treatment of choice to decrease triglyceride, unless of course it is more than 500, in which case fibrate should be used. So there's no pharmacotherapy to increase HDL cholesterol except probably exercise, and there was alcohol in moderation, but again, since it is not shown to be useful in South Asians, not been recommended in this particular document. What about diabetes? There's a lot of talk about statin and diabetes. Dr. Pandey very emphatically said that it's not such a big risk factor because the benefits are huge. And even data show that if 255 patients are treated with statin for 4 years, it would result in one case of mild diabetes, which would easily be treated, but it would prevent more than 5 deaths of myocardial infarction. And diabetes also occurs in those patients who actually are predisposed to diabetes. So it actually predates diabetes, which in individuals which they would anyway would have developed later on. So it's important that before we start statin, we should have a HbA1c and repeat it frequently so that the patients who develop diabetes can be treated early. And of course, aggressive lifestyle management is very important. Regarding statin intolerance, I think the first talk today was on statin intolerance. Though the incidence is 10%, very rare cases of CKMB being more than 10%. Of increase, a jump of CKMB being more than 10 times is very, very rare. So therefore, routine monitoring for CKMB is not actually recommended, and we should look for other causes of statin intolerance causing myalgia like vitamin D deficiency, hypothyroidism, etc. And if patients continue to have this type of myalgia, we may reduce the statin dose, reduce frequency of statins. Probably it's the only indication where you may give alternate day or twice weekly statins in case of statin intolerance, or we can go for a alternative statin. Yesterday, somebody was saying that a lot of this statin intolerance is psychological. So again, the neurological adverse effects were also very well dealt yesterday. And there is definitely a trend towards increased hemorrhagic stroke in patients, but there's a huge decrease in ischemic stroke. And the hemorrhagic stroke occurred more in patients who already had a past history of hemorrhage in these trials, or who had uncontrolled hypertension. So if you treat more than 10,000 patients, a few hemorrhagic strokes would occur against prevention of a few hundred ischemic strokes. So the benefits far outweigh the risk of statin regarding stroke. And there is no definite evidence regarding peripheral neuropathy and cognitive impairment. In case there's no reason found for cognitive impairment or neuropathy, we may withdraw the statins and assess whether cognitive impairment improves. Similarly, for hepatotoxicity, the interesting thing is that non-alcoholic steatohepatitis improves when you give statins, so it's not a big concern. And in primary prevention of coronary artery disease also yesterday, we had a lot of data to show that after Jupiter, they are important in selected patients. So these recommendations are not mandatory for the medical community, just opinions. And of course, clinicians should use their judgment before actually embarking on treatment. So the summary of what I had to say is that routine screening should be done beyond 20 years or at college admission, exclude secondary causes of dyslipidemia, use the LAI algorithm for risk assessment, does not need calculators. Use a risk calculator for lifetime risk assessment in individuals who have low risk. Stratify patients in various risk categories. LDL remains the primary target. LDL of less than 50 is safe. Non-HDL should also be measured, is the next target. There is non-statin drugs are important, especially fibrates. No role of niacin, omega-3 fatty acid debatable. Lifestyle modifications very important. We should all practice primordial prevention as physicians, and for this, public awareness is essential to address this topic. So, recommendation, nothing without implementation. And after yesterday, I feel most of the physicians are convinced that the way to go is to go as low as possible. I leave with this very nice message, which really affected me profoundly. And I thank you for a patient hearing, and I thank you for the coordinators and organizers for giving me this opportunity. This is a view of a hospital from across the water body. It's not Dal Lake in Kashmir. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Neil. Good presentation and lovely pictures. You're working in a very fortunate to be there. Just a couple of questions. You mentioned something about coronary artery calcium and HSCRP. According to the recommendation or your personal opinion, in which particular subset should you do coronary artery calcium scoring by CT? And which subset of patients you would do HSCRP, especially in the Indian context, because most of the Indians would have HSCRP would be high. And one last question, you mentioned about the targets in the Indian population. And obviously, the guidelines say that monitoring lipid therapy by doing a biochemical testing is important, as opposed to the ACC, which says that monitoring should not be done. So how frequently should you monitor a patient's lipid profile once you put him on statins in the Indian context? And are there any recommendation as to when you should down titrate your therapy if the LDL has fallen and the LDL has reached a particular value? Because the ACC says that you should scale down the therapy at some point of time.
Yeah, actually, answering the second question, regarding how long we should continue statins after the LDL has come down. So actually, many of these patients, these trials continued up to 5 years or so, and the same dose was given. The ACC actually, in their 2013 recommendation, didn't give LDL as a goal. However, later on in the document, they said that physicians may titrate down the dose if the LDL comes below 40. That is what they said. So otherwise, it has been found that they recommended basically that you should give the highest dose of statin for as long as possible if the patient is not intolerant or giving some complaint about the statin. And that is how actually in our country, what real world practice is that most physicians would not give 80 milligram continuously over years, I feel, even after acute coronary syndrome and PCI. Most of practitioners, what I've seen is that probably after 3 months, they would again repeat a lipid profile, and if the LDL goals are, quite low I mean nearing 40 or below 50, they would bring it down to half the dose. So this is how we would practice, but according to the guidelines, you can actually continue as long as the patient is not complaining of them. And the timing of doing the second lipid profile is recommended is 3 months, but most of us probably do it at 6 weeks. And the other question about HSCRP, we don't routinely give it as a test when a patient comes along with your lipid profile, thyroid function, etc. But if a patient is having a family history of premature coronary artery disease, in that case, probably we would do HSCRP. And if the values are more than 5 or more than 10, then obviously we have to discard that value. And if it is somewhere between 1 and 3 and below 5, in that case, we can categorize that as a low, moderate, and high risk. You can take that question.
So calcium scoring for the time being is not recommended as a screening tool at all, because a major concern is radiation and cost, of course. So there is no class 1 indication for calcium scoring, though there is a very strong recommendation that in case you want to find out what's happening therapeutically to the arteries indirectly, then you can use it, but there is no class 1 indication for calcium scoring.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Somebody else?
You are talking about statin intolerance. Now, I'd like to ask you whether there is any recent data about genetic predisposition of statin intolerance.
I didn't get the question.
My question is, statin intolerance is seen in patients and even in doctors. Yesterday, we came to know. Now, whether there is any genetic predisposition, are there any data? Which group of patients will go to statin intolerance?
No,
We
there's-
have a topic on the statin intolerance subsequently. He was talking on guidelines, consensus guidelines. We wait for some time.
And actually, I didn't understand that question that even amongst doctors there is intolerance. They're also patient. They're also human beings, Dada.
Yesterday they were saying among doctors there is more intolerance.
Okay.
So,
Any more?